Before I started to take leadership serious from a leadership standpoint, I didn't really understand that things were going to come up that I wasn't ready for. I thought that I would be ready for every single thing that would be on my plate. Why is resiliency so important? Part 2. In the prior video, we talked about why resiliency is so important for leaders. Specifically, we talked about the concepts of persevering through the unexpected and effectively dealing with change. My name is Michael Laidler, and one of the journeys of being a leader is understanding things are going to come up that you're not always ready for. But when they do, you should just have a few things in mind. You should have a few things in your toolbox that allows you to be ready for any circumstance. In today's video, this will be part 2 of a 3-part series where we're talking specifically about resiliency and what you can do today as a leader. If you haven't had a chance, make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notification button to allow you to see part 3. And if for some reason you missed part 1, that you go back to that. Let's jump on in. Why is resiliency so important for leaders? Well, I could tell you before I started my leadership journey, let me clarify. Before I started to take leadership serious from a leadership standpoint, I didn't really understand that things were going to come up that I wasn't ready for. I thought that I would be ready for every single thing that would be on my plate. But as I learned and I have developed as a leader, there's a lot of things that happen in our journey. There's a lot of things that happen during our tenureship as a leader. And it doesn't matter what industry that you're really in. All it matters is that when things come up that you aren't ready for, and being a leader, it will, you should have certain tools, certain methods to identify and help you overcome this. Because once you're in that leader role, with or without that title, people are going to look for you for answers. As I mentioned in the introduction, we talked about perseverance. We talked about effectively dealing with change. Today, the third tip, the third strategy I'm going to talk about is adaptability. Now, if you've ever heard me say anything about adaptability, it took a lot to realize that things will always change whether or not you want them to. And having an adaptable mindset coming into any leadership scenario is very helpful, because while you may know what your answer is going to be to a problem, or you have the best solution for an issue, you have no clue what that next person is going to say and or do that's going to impact your ability to provide a resolution for their own issue. One thing I like to do when it comes to thinking about the concept of adaptability is always have a few options in mind. Now, I'm not saying to come in there with the decision already made, but have a few different avenues the person can take. Have a few avenues that you can take, because there is typically, I was going to say always, I almost said it, but there's typically more than one way to handle any type of issue. Now, there are more right ways to handle it, but for me, when it comes to looking at that adaptability concept, just having a few options leading into any kind of conversation is important, because when you're hit or you're brought in front of that situation you're not ready for, and there's any kind or any type of resiliency that's required, you're going to have to look at everything that's available to you. And if you come into that situation, or that situation comes out of nowhere, and you only have studied or learned about one option how to handle it, there's a good chance that that one option is not going to be suitable. So for me, whenever I'm dealing with any kind of leadership issue, especially when it comes to resiliency and dealing with other people, I like to think about all the different options I can take, all the different options that I can use in order to impact that particular resolution. So for me, adaptability equals as many options as possible. Not just one, but as many as you can come with for every scenario. And a lot of time that's going to come around self-talk, preparing ahead and thinking about how you're going to handle certain circumstances, but having different ways to handle them, because you're never going to know what you're going to face. The second part on why resiliency is important, well, the fourth part, but the second part for this video, is stress management. Let me repeat that. Stress management. Everybody in our lives have stress. Some's good stress, some is bad stress. Nobody has no stress. Well, babies may not have stress. And maybe someone that's sleeping at the time doesn't have any stress. But 9 times out of 10, as a leader, you're going to have some level of stress. Not all stress is going to take you out. Not all stress is going to lead to burnout. But understanding what part of the stress level you're on is going to be extremely important when you're dealing with issues and when you're trying to understand how to help people out. So for me, one of my best ways to handle stress management is time management. When I control my time and I don't allow it to control me, it keeps me from hitting that burnout point, or it keeps me from hitting that tipping point to where I'm just going to blow up on somebody. And as a leader, you have to be able to have your stress managed a lot more effectively than any follower out there. Now, you may be a follower of somebody else, but if you're considered a leader and someone's coming to you with their issues and they're facing some hard times, it's good to have your stress under control ahead of time. So for me, I love time management. I love planning my days out. I love having a calendar of events. Now, if you read my book, Greatness Beyond the Badge, one thing that I harp on in the last chapter is something called the 24-hour formula. And what that is literally taking the 24 hours in a day. And if anybody's watching or listening, if you have more than 24 hours, I'm impressed. But most people, if not all, have 24 hours in a day. How do I effectively manage that? How do I find time to sleep? How do I find time to exercise? How do I find time to eat? How do I find time to work on myself? How do I find time to spend time with family? And obviously, how do I find time to work? All those impact each and every one of our days. So one of the ways that I help alleviate a little bit of my stress is trying to figure out what I'm doing each and every day. One of the best methods to start that 24-hour formula is to plan the next day. So for example, if your normal bedtime is, let's say 10 p.m., around 8 or 9 or whenever you find a wind down time, which you should have into your schedule, you start looking at the next day and you say, okay, these are the benchmarks I need to hit. These are the things I need to do. And when you get to those situations, if you plan correctly, it allows you to minimize anything else that may come up. Not completely eliminate, because there's things that happen, car crashes, people getting hurt, just power going out, things that's out of your control. But to minimize your stress as much as you can, especially as a leader, you need to be able to have time management, specifically in the area of knowing what you're doing each and every day, specifically in that 24-hour realm. Thank you for watching these third and fourth tips on why resiliency is so important for leaders. If you didn't get a chance, make sure you check out the first video where we talked about persevering through the unexpected and effectively dealing with change. All these will lead to our final 3 tips and strategies on why resiliency is so important. Also, if you haven't had a chance, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that notification button, because these videos are designed for you, the leader, the person, because we all deal with different things in life, and having different tools and strategies to help you overcome some of these times that will test your resiliency, it's good to have it before they happen rather than trying to react in a moment. Once again, thank you for your time. Have a great day. If you need anything, reach out.